him what is it that are transpiring here inside the hall. And with me now, next to me, I have the Minister of Communications, Minister Yunus Carrim. Good morning, Minister.
Good morning to you and the viewers.
Okay, Minister, if you can just tell us this conference here in the province, what is it all about?
Well, it's the last of our provincial public hearings on our National Integrated ICT Policy Green Paper. A green paper is basically the proposals the government has got on how to change its policies and introduce amendments to the existing legislation. Now, we are here to listen to what the public itself has to say. We started the hearings on the 3rd of March this year, and we visited all the provinces, and today is our last province. Now we want to hear from the public. What is it that they think we can do about broadcasting, about postal services, about the cell phone industry, about a whole lot of areas that deal with what we collectively call information and communication technology. Once this process is over, we will then develop what we call a white paper. It's government policy. That will provide the framework for significantly amending our legislation from the beginning of 2015. But before we change any laws, we want to hear from the people themselves. Now, one of the key reasons for these hearings is that our current policies and laws are outdated. As you may well know, there are very fast-changing developments in what we call the ICT sector. For example, when we shaped our laws, we had separate policies for the postal services, for broadcasting and telecommunications, and then e-commerce, which is engaging in business over the internet or the cell phone or the computer. Now we have realized that there's a thing called convergence. For example, your cell phone, it can assist you to communicate via SMS and emails and so on. You can also have video on demand. You can see pictures, almost like TV, on your one single cell phone that you use to send messages. Through it, you can also engage with the banks and pay for your service charges to municipalities. You can also do a whole lot of things with your cell phone that previously you could not. So we need now to have legislation to take into account what we call convergence in technology. Now, we are also seeking to make the public aware, especially the poor and the disadvantaged, of the value of the cell phone. Beyond just being used to make voice calls and send SMSs, it has huge potential, especially for the poor and the disadvantaged and the unemployed, to create means, as it is doing in Kenya and other parts of this country, this continent and the world, in developing world in particular, to create opportunities for self-employment. That's what we want people to be aware of. Already we have 136% cell phones in this country. In fact, there are more cell phones or SIM cards for cell phones in this country than there are people. But of course, some people have more than one cell phone or SIM card, while others have none.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Having said that, you mentioned that this is the last province that you are visiting in the country. From all the provinces that you have visited already, what have you received from the public as they gave their comments?
Mostly there is a concern about the high costs of using the cell phone. People feel it's too high. People feel, yes, they would like to engage more in cell phones and in computers, but the costs are too high. Right now, you know, there's a matter before the courts about reducing what are called interconnect rates between the cell phone companies, the charges each of them pays to receive calls from the other companies, right? There's a legal matter there. But the government is clear. The ANC in its manifesto for 2014-2019 has made it clear. The cost to communicate has to come down. The costs are far too high in this country. In fact, of the 10 biggest economies on the continent, we charge the most. In fact, if you look at world indices of the cost to communicate, we rank in the last 25%. So we have to actually hear what people are saying. They want the cost to communicate to come down. The second issue that seems to arise is that they want more radio and television in indigenous languages, which reinforces the need for us to move faster on, in fact, moving from the current analog television network we have to a digital one, which will release radio frequency spectrum for the mobile and other operators so that they can also service underserviced and rural areas and over time reduce the cost to communicate.
Mm-hmm. You have said too much about the cell phone usage and the tariffs and everything that has to do with that. But having said that, all of this, what does this mean to a grandmother, to a grandfather, to an illiterate someone who is sitting somewhere deep in the remote rural areas?
But this is primarily for her than it is for you and me. You and me and others of us who belong to the elites, we can afford perhaps, grudgingly maybe, to pay those cell phone costs. She can't. That cell phone is more for her than for you and me. Take, for example, emerging farmers on our continent. Increasingly, they are using a simple cell phone to look at patterns of climate change over the next few days, weather patterns. And they decide according to what they see on their simple cell phone when they will harvest their crop, so they can avoid having to store it before they take it to a local village market. In Kenya and other countries, what they do also is they look in their cell phones, on their cell phones, and work out which market from which village will give them the best deal. The Colombian Minister of Communications recently said that potato farmers in his country increased their sales by 40% by the use of the cell phone. Secondly, you take Kenya again and other countries. You've got a thing called M-Pesa banking, where if you're far too poor to have a bank account or pay the administrative charges bank charges you, you can use your cell phone to transfer money from, say, Nairobi to the most remote rural area. So this public hearing, which is why you have ordinary people from the community here, including people from rural areas, this is primarily about them. But it's also about you and me. We need the cost of communication to come down so that we can do more with our cell phones and contribute to the economy. But it's in the interest of the economy as a whole. Everybody will benefit by the reduction in the cost to communicate, but disproportionately it will be the poor and disadvantaged who do not have the money for the use of the internet through computers and other means. In fact, in our very own country, 30% of our people have got smartphones.
Okay, Minister, thank you very much for your time, for talking to us today.
Yes.
And I hope that was very much fruitful for the viewer who is sitting right out there to take what is important that the Minister had to say. And that was the Minister of Communications, Minister Yunus Carrim, talking to us here in Rocklands, Bloemfontein. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you so much, Cornella. And that is a very interesting and, of course, important topic, the Green Paper on ICT. We're going to keep a close eye on that topic. But right now, Philip Hawkins is standing by with your weather update.